There is no creature whose inward being is so strong that it is not greatly determined by what lies outside it. George Eliot, Middlemarch. I've never eaten a person, but today I might. I wake up in my thicket to the sound of whip cracks and look out and see a bulky man in a brown leather jacket and brown hat swinging the whip toward two other people, a man and a woman. The woman holds a phone up and says, "You look just like him, oh my God." The man with the whip smiles and cracks it again, and I feel something in the bottom of my stomach that's not hunger. I also feel hunger. The man without the whip lies down on his back and spreads his legs and lifts his feet up to the sky and shouts, "Okay, do it. Just flick 'em. Just lightly flick my nuts." The man with the whip snaps his arm back and forward, and the whip hits the dirt in front of the lying down man, and the lying down man says, "Yes, yes." The woman presses her phone and says, "Be careful, those are my boys." I try to understand people, but they make it hard. The man on the ground is skinny, and the woman with the phone is skinny, but the man holding the whip is thick, and his neck bulges against the collar of his tan shirt, and I can see a vein and hear the blood running down through his arm, and his arm flexes and gets meaty every time he raises the whip. The whip hits the ground and kicks up dust, and it sounds like the torment of all big cats. Fuck this guy. I can smell his insides. My mouth waters and the drool slides down and soaks my paws. I smack my lips louder than the whip's crack, and the people stop like they heard me, and the lying down man stands up, and the woman turns her phone in my direction, and the man with the whip holds the whip at the ready. "Yeah, I heard that," says the woman, like someone asked her a question. I'm not scared of their eyes. I'm the same color as my thicket and the same color as the ground. No one sees me, unless I want them to. The whip makes the bulky man brave, and he steps slow toward me and squints and leans in with his throbbing neck vein in full focus. My mouth opens, and I judge the distance between the man and his skinny friends and try to decide if I can drag him into the thicket quick enough. I wonder if they'll chase us or if they'll run away. It's been weeks since I've eaten anything bigger than a raccoon. I think of how many meals I can get out of this man, and how if I store him down in the caves, the vultures won't find him, and I'll be able to come back over and over to eat a little more. I think of all the nights we'll spend together, this man and his guts and me. "Let's get food," says the man, as he coils the whip around his fist and pulls his neck away from the path of my teeth. The woman claps her hands and says, "Yeah, I thought I was totally over brunch, but I guess I'm not." I watch them walk fast down the trail, and I go to sleep, because sleep takes my hunger away. When I wake up, I hear the last of the day's hikers passing my thicket. Two girls with huge water bottles that bounce the sunlight through the branches and into my eyes. It's not easy to sleep on an empty stomach, but I guess I did okay. One girl says, "God, I can't believe it's dark already." "I know, we have to starting earlier," says the other. She takes a sip from her bottle and says, "No matter how much I say no and cancel stuff, there's still no time." And the first girl says, "That's just your scarcity mentality. You have to work on that." "Yeah, you know this. You know I don't like change," says the second girl. And the first girl says, "Of course, but we all live in scarcity under capitalism. So we all have to make an effort to deprogram a scarcity mentality as like our central driving force." Their voices get lower, and then I can't hear them anymore, and I yawn and stretch my paws out, and their water bottles vanish with their bodies in the sunset. I shouldn't be here, and neither should they. Now that the hikers are gone, I leave my thicket and go down into the dry ravine where lots of water used to flow. And I eat bugs and suck at the little trickles to make my thirst less. I remember the last rain, and I remember I wasn't happy about it, but I don't know how long it's been since. Now I need water to come from the sky or anywhere else. I need more than a dirty sip. I think of the girl hikers and the shiny bottles they gulp out of, and I paw the dirt for more caterpillars and eat them, and I know I have to find somewhere new to drink. Things are changing. A while ago, I wouldn't fantasize about eating a person. What the girls said makes sense. I'm not sure what a scare city mentality is, but I have it. Here is called different things by different people. Mostly they say ellay, but they also say the park or Hollywood. I hear that word a lot. I know I live below the Hollywood sign because the hikers say, "Oh, look, we're below the Hollywood sign." And they say, "Can we get all the way up there?" And they ask, "Which letter would you jump off?" I've been up there, but at night lights come on and it's too exposed, so I stay down where I am now. Views don't matter to me anyway. The hikers say things like, "Look at that view," or say things like, "We have to do this more often, get up here and get perspective." What they see makes them point or stop and turn and put their hands on their hips and breathe deep, but the distance they love is an out-of-focus blur when I try to look where they're looking. All I can see is what's right in front of me. When the sun drops below the ridge, I leave the dried-up ravine and go to town. Town is where my people live. There are 4 of them, and they have 3 tents set up just a few layers back in the trees where the hikers can't see. But I see in the dark. The people in town smell familiar to me, a smell like warmth or the woods, not the sweet hiker smell that makes my head hurt. And that's how I found them a while ago and found their pile of trash and the smaller animals that come to eat their trash and offer themselves up to get eaten by me. The people build a fire some nights, and I have to stay far away from the glow, but they haven't done that in months. They're afraid of the dryness like I'm afraid of the dryness. There's a water pump in the clearing past town, and that's why they built town where they built it. It's not a bad setup. I go to the water pump, and there's a deep puddle below it, and I lap and lap and lap. I'm the secret member of town. I stay on the edges and don't mess with their tents or their tarps and supplies, but I hear them talk about me. The older man in the left tent calls me Puma. The couple in the middle tent call me Lay-Own. The young man in the right tent calls me a different name every day, but it always ends with cat. Fucker cat, or shit fuck cat, or goddamn fuck cat. I can take it. He's kind otherwise, and leaves his trash by a tree, and tonight it's a bucket of chicken bones, but at the bottom, there's chicken. The meat and the bones taste like many people's saliva, and my stomach gets full, and I get grateful, and my eyes fill. I want to thank my people, but I know if they see me, it'll fuck up our relationship. The first light means it's time to go, and I bring a bone back to my thicket. The hikers start early, and I hear voices as soon as I'm settled in, hidden and gnawing. Or I hear one voice, a man's voice. "I'm a good listener," says the man, and I see he's with a woman who hikes beside him. The man says, "Really, I'm serious. I want to listen. You can tell me anything you want about us or me or the dinner, anything. I promise I'll just listen and I won't interrupt or project. I can take it. You don't know what a good listener I am without you, or when I'm not around you, when I'm with other people. It's just this specific stuff with us that makes it hard. So I'm ready to listen. I really am. I promise. I'm ready." This is my bedtime story today, and I close my eyes and leave my ears open. I'm a good listener. I don't hear the woman's voice, and I start to wonder what she sounds like. I wonder what I sound like. At dusk, I feel alone enough. I chance a growl, but the earth growls louder. The ground feels wrong. My paws aren't attached anymore. They give out. My body on the ground shudders, and everything shudders around me. It's all moving at the same time. The mountain moves. I feel like I'm in water. There's no foothold. Little rocks roll by. The branches of my thicket scratch my face in a way they're not supposed to, and the small, sharp pain doesn't wake me because I'm not asleep. I can't get up, and I think I never will, and this goes on forever as the shudder ends. The stillness now is not the stillness before. I don't trust this stillness. There are small bits of blood on my legs from the branch scratches. My thicket isn't safe anymore. I step out and there's a person standing next to me. She's wearing a yellow shirt and yellow shoes, and her back is turned, and she's messing with her phone so she doesn't see me. I freeze and feel awful. Okay, she shouts into the air, and then says again to herself, okay. She steps back on one foot, and her shoe is so close to my face I can smell it. The phone is up at her ear now, and she scratches her side and leaves her hand there, holding on to herself tight while she talks. Did you feel that? She says into the phone. No, she says. No, I'm in the park. I don't know, I walk now, what? Her shoe moves away from my face, and then she gets quiet and listens, and then she shouts, how did you not feel it? It's a fucking earthquake. And then she gets quieter and says, babe, I know you said not to call, but I'm calling because, look, fuck it, I'm coming home. She snorts and wipes something away from her eyes with the back of her phone hand. She runs forward down the hill, and dust from her yellow shoes hangs in the air, along with the word earthquake. I look down and touch one front paw to the other to make sure I'm real and alive. I've felt so many shudders before, but either this one was different or I'm different. Now. I scrape the dirt and walk uphill, but I'm worried the ground won't ever be solid again. It's dark when I reach the caves, and I get lucky because the earthquake has pushed a swarm of bats out of one tunnel, and they swoop and scatter above me, and they're just as confused as I am. Even the shudder can't destroy my nightly hunger. I use their confusion. They have no idea how high I can jump. I leap and swat one bat down from the air and crack its neck with my teeth, and then I do the same with another and another. This easy hunt is like a game, and I find joy in the new moonlight. I go deep into the caves until they get so narrow I have to stop. If more shudders are coming, I want to be somewhere small. I turn and lie down with my bat snack in front of me and fill my mouth and then my stomach, and there's water dripping, so I wash down the wings. I've heard hikers talk about earthquakes before. They say, it's a reason to get the fuck out of ellay. Or they say, they're not bad anymore. Or, it's not a thing anymore, the fault totally shifted. Anyway, it's better to be outside when the big one hits, they say. I'm always outside. Tonight, under layers of rock, I'm full, and I can at least breathe. But even here in the cave, I know I'm still outside. I'm not in a tent like the people in town, and it doesn't make it better that the shudder happened, and won't make it better if it happens again. I don't know. It's hard to say how it feels. I'm looking for words. Piss splashes my face and wakes me up. The sharp smell bristles my fur and my eyes pop open. I watch the man's dangling part and the wet pouring from it onto the pebbles in front of me. The salt covers my lips and I lick it away. I'm hungry again. I turn away from the spray and my eyes must catch the sunlight because the pissing man makes a deep noise and clutches his chest and turns before pulling up his pants, and he skids on the gravel and falls on his face. He recovers and runs out of the cave and doesn't look back. If he looked back, he'd see me not chasing, not moving. He'd see me not giving a fuck. I've been pissed on before. I stand and leave my cranny and sniff his puddle and straddle it and piss, and the puddle gets larger. I can still smell his fear. I walk over to where he fell and paw the frantic marks he made in the gravel, and I think what it would be like to hunt him. He was so close when he woke me up, and I had all the power of surprise on my side. The attack could have happened right then, and I could stuff him in the cranny and I'd be set for a few meals. He had a scrawny neck that'd snap in a sec. But he had no meat to him. Nothing like the man with the whip. I'm only thinking all this because the pissing man is gone, and I know I won't see him again. I find his phone by the mouth of the cave. It's black and shiny and has a pattern like snakeskin, and I flip it over and press on it like I see the people pressing on theirs, but phones don't work for me. I can't pick it up and raise it right up to my face or my ear, and anyway, who would I call? What would I say? Where would my voice go? I lean close and see something in the black screen. Maybe a tongue and teeth. My reflection. But I don't have that word yet. My eyes. I like to think the man who ran will remember these eyes. Always. I swat the phone over by the metal base of a sign. The sign stands at the entrance to the cave, and when I see people here, the people stop and move close and look at it, and then they either turn around or go inside. I don't know what this sign is because I can't read. There are signs all over the park, and I watch people stop at them, and I try to figure out what the signs say by the people's reactions. Sometimes people ask each other what they say, like they can't read either, but it's because one is always closer to the sign, and then they help me by reading out loud. So I know the one that says fire danger very high today, and the one that says caution rattlesnakes. I don't have a problem with rattlesnakes. The one that says fire danger changes color, and sometimes the people read it and say extreme, and then say shit. Is there a warning sign for me? Is it this one? When I leave the cave, the birds are screaming, and there's an ever bigger sound in the sky, whirring and grinding and moving in long circles. The young man in town calls them fucking helicopters. The fucking helicopters circle at night and shine big lights down that take away my dark, and then I can't see, and I can't stay hidden. The young man in town will leave his tent and scream and shake his fist and call them names like he calls me. He hates them, so I hate them. The whirring and grinding sound gets lower, and I hear hikers coming and run behind a tree. The hikers are looking up, of course, and one says, "That's a rescue chopper." "Yeah, for the children's hospital," says the other. "They're always going to the children's hospital down on Sunset. I hear them all day." "Oh, perfect," the first hiker says. "Now whenever I look up and see them or hear them, I'll just think of the bloody and dying baby in there, and that'll make me feel great." I look up through the branches of the big tree, but the sky is too bright for me to see anything except painful light. Instead, I shut my eyes and listen to the fucking helicopter sound fade. I imagine the bloody sky children. I think about blood raining from the sky, and I roll onto my back and stretch and claw the air and open my mouth and think of catching all the blood rain in my mouth and it quenching my thirst and making it go away in a way it hasn't since I was small. When I'm hungry, I think about blood too much. Also when I'm not hungry. I lick the little scratches my thicket made on me and taste dirt and my own insides, and it's not quenching at all. It tastes like cat, and I'm cat, and I don't like cat. I stand up and spit and shake my head and grow up. I probably wouldn't eat a child. My new thicket is a nest of twisted trees above a path. Hikers come by all day while I rest, but I'm 10 feet above them, and they never suspect. From here, I wouldn't even have to leap. I'd just have to drop, and whichever hiker I wanted would be mine. I try to keep these thoughts from my head and let the dry breeze cause sleep. The hikers talk about their therapists. They decide what is good or bad about their therapists and decide if the therapist helped them feel good or bad, and they throw these two words around like they have different meanings. A therapist is something I want. I don't know if I feel good or bad. If feeling hungry is bad, then I almost always feel hungry, so maybe I almost always feel bad. A therapist can help me with this. A therapist can explain why I have a shudder inside after the shudder outside is over. A hiker says, I pay her $200 a session just to talk shit about my parents. My mother gave me a name I can't share. I'm not from ellay. I just ended up here. I was a baby far away where the sun sets. A deep forest on the edge of the water where we could taste the salt carried up by the wind at night. Because there were many of us in the green hill, where the colors were colors I don't see here, and the deer roamed for us to capture, and all we had to do was lie in wait and be patient. My mother could stay still for days and listen for the soft sounds prey makes. My mother was very kind. Her bloodthirst was insatiable. She taught me how to snap a neck with my jaws. Why would I ever leave her? My father gave me a name I won't repeat. He wasn't around in our part of the forest. He kept his own territory, higher up in the hillside. When we traveled toward the water, we would sometimes see him lurking and watching us to make sure we remembered to worship him, even if we were doing all the traveling and killing ourselves. My mother stood on the uphill side and blocked my little body from his view. I grew from kitten size to my now size, and stayed close to my mother while all the other cats went away to find their own thickets and stalk their own prey and make their own kittens. My father wanted more, and so his territory grew, and we were suddenly in it. He came down the hill. I was too big then for my mother to block. He attacked her first. A father to a kitten is an absence. A grown cat to a father is a threat. A hiker says, My only really good therapist was in New York. Of course, says the other hiker. They talk about New York a lot in ellay. In New York, you don't need a car. Cars are loud metals that carry people to the park, and that they leave in lines and clusters near the paths, and that they can't stop talking about needing, but not in New York. Is New York where I have to go? From what people say, it sounds like everyone there is coming here, and that's why everything is changing, or why everything costs too much now, or why all the good things about ellay are disappearing. I want to do the opposite. I want to go to a place where I won't be hated. Where there are therapists running around everywhere like deer, and I can just find one and catch it and pin it down, store it somewhere safe, and visit it once a week. That's the thing with ellay, says the other hiker. Forget about therapy, you have to go to the next level here. All we've got here is gurus. Their smell leaves my nose. My mother taught me to hunt, but my father taught me to be hunted. After the attack, he chased me toward the sunrise, staying uphill from me all the time so I wouldn't forget his power. When I had to shit, I'd do my best to bury it and not leave a trace. The only direction I could go where I knew my father wouldn't follow was toward the roar of the long death. Every animal was afraid of the long death, even my father. At the top of the farthest hill, I saw more hills, hills with no green. But between where I was and the place I had to go was the long death. The long death was a giant blurry path that led all the way up and all the way down, and was always blazing with fast-moving cars that killed countless creatures. I traded old fear for new fear. I have trouble sleeping in the twisted trees because there are so many hikers who go by and talk loud all day. They talk about how no one in ellay has real jobs, but from what they describe as real jobs, I don't think they have them either. ellay is a mecca for the underemployed, they say. To be employed, they need skills. They say to each other, "You've got so many marketable skills." I go over my skills. My skills are hiding so long that you forget I'm there, watching and listening until I memorize your habits and your language, but killing is my job. A big lizard crawls by, and I smash its head against a rock and swallow half of it. "That's trauma, too. That's the trauma talking," says a girl on a phone. "It's all trauma." She goes silent and she stuffs her phone into a bag hanging from her shoulder, and when she pulls her arm out, a piece of green paper flutters to the ground behind her. I know the paper is important because I've seen people drop it before, and they say, "Shit," and they run and grab it, and they say, "That was close." The trauma girl doesn't do any of that. She doesn't even notice that it fell, and she keeps going, and I wait, and the moon appears above me. I jump down and pick up the paper in my teeth. I try to taste its importance. Nothing. I decide my people will get more use out of the green paper, so I take it to town. They may have made it through the earthquake, and they may have tents to keep out the cold and the rain, and they may have piles of trash, but I want to contribute. This may be their town, but we all live in Scare City. There's a dog in town tonight, and I stop before I get too close. Dogs don't do it for me. When their people bring them up the mountain, they always sniff out my hiding spots and bark, and I can't eat them, because the one dog I ate was dead already, and it made my insides feel awful for days. So just the thought and the sound are sickening. This dog is tied up outside the middle tent and barking, but not at me. I'm too far away, too good at my special skills. I let the green paper fall out of my mouth. The dog is facing the other direction. In the trees beyond the dog, I see 3 sets of eyes. Coyotes are different. They run together and have a mentality like mine. If I don't eat them, they get ideas. They start to think they can eat me if there are enough of them and enough bites to take. These 3 have their lit-up eyes fixed on the dog, and they're ready for blood. So I get around behind them and tackle one and crunch its neck, and the other 2 run away. I drag the skinny body to the water pump and drink from the puddle and eat from the coyote. The dog stops barking. You're welcome, I think, to my sleeping people. People are attached to their dogs. In my triumph, I sleep, and in my sleep, I dream, and in my dream, I see the man with the whip and his bulging neck vein. The vein grows larger than me and larger than the mountain. I'm so full at sunrise that I forget to leave. A voice says, "Dead dog." And then the voice repeats it, "Dead dog." The young man has a bottle in his hand, and he's standing on the other side of the eaten coyote. There's a bucket lying on the ground. The young man says it again, "Dead dog." And his neck twitches, and his voice changes, and he says, "Lots of low-level parking," like he knows what scares me most is what I don't understand. He raises the bottle. Would we be okay if I had the green paper in my mouth instead of coyote guts? If I had something to offer? Bad cat. He throws the bottle and it hits my front paw hard, and I tip sideways, and he runs uphill, and all the ground dirt floats in the air of the bad morning, and I watch it blow away, and the young man stops and turns and looks down at me to make sure I'm going. He looks at me like my father. I return to the twisted trees, and the path below is busy again. "I'm kind of a poet," says some boy kid to another boy kid he's holding hands with. "When they ask, 'What are you?' says the kid, my mind goes right to poet, 'cause I don't ever make the obvious choice. I make the deep choice. I want to claim that title, poet. Poet." I watch their hands while they walk away. Hands that could be grabbing bottles and throwing, but instead are wrapped together and connected. I think I'm kind of a poet, Because when I finally find a deer left behind by a herd, its leg broken and stuck in a rock, even though I know I shouldn't, no, it'll make the meat spoil quicker. I eat the heart first. I drag my deer to the twisted trees where it'll be covered so I can make the meat and iron flavor that's filling my mouth last. This is a feast for a week. I won't need my people and their tents and their scraps. Won't need to go to town. I can take care of myself. It's easy to lie when I'm stuffed. Rest tries to find me, but the nonstop voices of the passing hikers find me instead. Yeah, I can't wait to see you, a man says into wires that hang from his ears. So let's not wait, right? With every step we take, with what you do when you hang up and when you dream you're moving closer to me and I'm doing the same, we're not waiting, not standing and waiting. We're constantly traveling in time toward when we get to be together again. There's something wrong with my ears. I can't shut them like I can shut my eyes. More and more voices come, and I stop looking to see where they're all coming from. We don't have earthquake insurance, they say, but we've always got a go bag packed in case fire comes down the mountain. They don't know where they are. They keep changing the name. Is it ellay, or is it Beechwood, or is it the canyon? They call everything a disaster. I stare at the trees because the trees don't talk. This is not a big deal, they all say, but only before they say other things. This is not a big deal, but the car's gonna need way more work than they thought. This is not a big deal, but he ghosted me, whatever, he's ugly and all his friends suck. This is not a big deal, but right now I need you to listen to me. They say, I can't believe it's almost the 4th and I still don't have a check from him. I've been looking at the mailbox every single day. And they say, you know what the definition of insanity is? Doing the same thing over and over. And they say, yeah, but checking the mail. They say, ni modo, and then they say it again. They say, fame is a real killer. All I did was one commercial and now I get recognized and shouted at. God, I need to go back to being nobody. They say, yeah, of course the project is gay. Everything is gay now. Everything is gay now. It's all gay. Everything is gay now. They say, no, I'm not going to tell her. I want to devour their sound. I have so much language in my brain and nowhere to put it. I spend half the night dragging my deer up the hill to the cliff top to find some quiet. When I reach the top, there's an owl perched on the rock across from me. It's not interested in my deer. The meat's been unmoving for too long. The owl's head turns to look at me, so I look back into its eyes, and I see what it sees. The bright world below the park at night is a blur to me when I try to look out over it. But if I get close enough to a creature's eye, I can see what it sees, and in the owl's eye, I see ellay clearly. More lights than I could ever count stretch out into the darkness and don't stop stretching. I'm scared of how far they go. I get why people can't decide on one name. This can't all be ellay. With a stomach full of deer, I walk uphill. There are no eyes on me anymore. I feel watched. A whirring sound pops out of a bush and I look for a bird, but a flash of light hits me instead. I blink and go tear up the bush, and inside is a black box standing up on little black sticks, and it whirs and clicks and flashes again, and this time it hurts my eyes and takes my sight away. In the blindness, a cold wind cuts into the skin below my fur. When my sight comes back, I go close to the black box again, and I see my nose and mouth in the little glass circle, and I think of the people holding up their phones and pressing and pressing. I step back and wait for the next flash, but there's no next flash. My claws come out, and I knock the little black sticks, and the black box tilts and falls, and it pops open like a trap. What did it capture? The smell of easy prey wakes me. What I see when I open my eyes isn't something to eat. It's two slow people, withered and wrapped in layers of clothing. One is hunched over and the other staggers and helps him up the trail. It's sweet, but unappetizing. I can smell their death coming at me through the woods. Is this what the coyotes smell when they circle? What my father smelled on me? What made him want to snap my neck in his jaws or beat my head on the ground? Was I a threat, or just on my way out? My skin is starting to get loose, and some of my fur drags and tugs on things it didn't drag or tug on before. It's okay. Old is fine. I'm old because I'm not dead. Something explodes above me. The sun's already set, but this brings the day back white and blinding in the black sky like a swarm of fucking helicopters. There are cheers rising from down below, like all of ellay is making this happen, like the people forgot how dry my life is. And they do it again and again. More explosions and cheers and less night. I look down to stop my eyes from hurting, but the light doesn't go anywhere, and now the bursts are in my ears, too. I hear the sky crackle and fall down around me. All I feel is fire danger. This is too much. The shudder inside becomes unbearable. I can't eat everything I'm afraid of. The horror of the sky fire stays in my head for days. I sit secluded on my cliff where no one comes until sundown. Two men approach the cave below, and I watch. They walk a few feet apart and stare at their phones, and don't talk. The only sound they make is footsteps on gravel. At the mouth of the cave, one stops and looks at the sign, and one doesn't and keeps walking in. The space between them grows larger. When they're out of sight, I climb down the cliff and creep to the cave mouth where I can watch the men and not be seen. Their phones are gone now, and one stands close behind the other and leans into the other's neck to bite. The best deer I ever ate was one I didn't kill. When I made it far enough away that my father stopped hunting, he left me to the long death with its roar that got louder with every step I took. I first saw the deer bolting through the woods, and it stopped in front of me. Stopped long enough for another big cat to catch it. I watched and did nothing as the other big cat ended the deer's life and made it meat. With blood on his mouth and nose and whiskers, the other big cat looked at me, a challenge to approach, or an invitation. I waited until he'd eaten a bite of intestine, and then joined, my face buried in the deer and my eyes on him. When you meet a big cat who will share a kill, you can't let go of him easily. I bend low and enter the mouth of the cave and hide in the shadows. The men are on the ground now, on their knees, and the one in front has his hands planted flat like my paws against the dirt. There's a hot scent where they're connecting. My eyes are full. The motion they make reminds me of the shudder, but in a way that makes it okay. They move like the whole cave wants them to move, like a natural part of this world. The man behind collapses forward, and his front joins with the other man's back, and their arms wrap together. The shape they form is like my shape. Their breathing is hard, but their bodies are motionless, and they go silent, and my purr echoes. I'm loud. They're going to see me. I remember how every day the kill-sharer and I would meet by his deer and bloody our faces together, and each bite that made the carcass smaller made the roar of the long death smaller too. I would stay close, and he would go off somewhere and return matted and hungry, his teeth bared, as if he had stories he wanted to tell me but couldn't, and his chewing was enough, and I treasured the way he blew air out of his nostrils. No deer lasts as long as you want it to. I saved him the final bite, and I waited and waited, but he didn't return, and then I knew it was time I crossed the long death. The long death, up close and in focus, was even harder to take with its lights and speeding murderous cars, never stopping on their hell ride to the right and to the left. I spent all night terrified and slinking along the side, daring myself to cross, and when the light broke over the hill, I saw the body of the kill-sharer. His fur coated in a mix of dried deer blood and wet cat blood, his own blood. I ran straight across the long death, my feet determined and pounding, because I wanted to die. I'm not that lucky. The men in the cave pull their pants up and get back on their phones. The one behind leaves first, and the other one waits a moment and follows. They're so into their screens that neither of them sees me. I go over to the spot on the ground where the men were connecting and lie down in the disturbed dirt. My body twists into the same position the kill-sharer had in death. I wonder if I'd been brave enough and tried to cross first, would he have found my body? Or if we'd crossed together, would we both have made it? I imagine the kill-sharer appearing now at the mouth of the cave, circling like I'm his prey, and pouncing and connecting with me and the warmth we would make together with our 8 paws and 2 dangling parts and 4 rows of teeth. I get up and crouch and shit and bury what came out of me. 2 more men approach, and these 2 brought their voices, and their voices say, "Man, I don't want you to miss your chance," and say, "Yeah, God, she's so cute." They pass the mouth of the cave, and they don't come in, and the cave is fully dark now, and I feel hidden, and I watch. They kick rocks and pace and push small sticks in their mouths, and the sticks make a glow, and the men blow out smoke, and the glowing sticks shrink. I know these men. The man with the whip and his skinny friend. The man with the whip is not holding a whip, and he's not wearing a hat or jacket, but I know his thickness, and I know that neck vein I've been seeing in my head since he first leaned it within reach of my teeth. "This is your chance to have pancakes with Allison," says the skinny friend to the man with the whip. "She wants pancakes, what can I say?" says the man with the whip. They are not going to connect. I follow them down the trail, and they reach the trees near town. "Just ask her when we get back," says the skinny friend. "Hold on, I have to take a piss." The skinny friend ducks into the woods and leaves the man with the whip alone. I go closer, and the man with the whip stretches his arms above his head and spits on the ground, and the extended length of him looks vulnerable. But the skinny friend runs back out and says, "Shit, never mind." And the man with the whip says, "What?" And the skinny friend says, "There's a whole, camp in there." And he points through the trees to where the tents of town are. "Fuck," says the man with the whip. "These fucking tents are everywhere now, man. I mean, my street's not safe." And the skinny friend says, "Yeah, Julia doesn't want to walk over anymore. They take up the whole sidewalk." And the man with the whip says, "Fucking disgusting with what we pay in rent." They go quiet, and the man with the whip pulls a small metal box out of his pocket and holds it up. "All right, fuck 'em," he says. "Seriously, watch this." He flicks the metal box open, and it makes fire. Another weapon. He walks with the weapon into town. I crouch behind a tree, and the skinny friend stands back near me and says, "What?" The man with the whip turns and says, "Shh," and he goes to the pile of trash near the tents, and he makes the fire and holds it against the trash, and the trash becomes little bits of fire too. He squats and steps over to the cardboard outside the young man's tent and makes the fire again from his little metal box, and the cardboard turns bright. The man with the whip closes the metal box and sprints to the skinny friend. "Smoke 'em out," says the man with the whip, and pats the skinny friend on the back, and they walk away quick making nervous laughing sounds. Ha 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 ha. I watch the fire lick the tents and I hear my people wake up. The couple in the middle make muffled noises. A spark jumps to the brush at the bottom of a tree and the flames rise and light everything. This is a big deal. The woman of the couple tears out of their tent with her dog, and the man follows and tosses her a backpack, and she turns and looks at the flames, and the man goes and pulls the old man in the left tent out, and the old man staggers backward and leans on a tree right next to me, coughing. The woman shouts, "Santo," and she picks up a bucket and throws the bucket at him, and he catches it and runs up the hill toward the water pump. The dog goes barking past me out of sight, and they don't try to chase him. The woman waves a hand from her head to her heart and from shoulder to shoulder. The cardboard by the right tent burns fast, and the fire consumes the young man's tent, and when he steps out, his legs and arm are on fire. The old man and the woman don't move, so I move. I go past them and toward the right tent, and I leap on the young man and knock him to the ground on his back, and I pound the fabric of his jacket where the fire is and knock it out, and I grab his collar with my teeth and pull him away from the cardboard, and the cardboard is almost gone, and the tent is all flames, and I pound with my paws again on his legs this time, and one fire goes out, and the other doesn't, and his mouth is open, and he is probably screaming, but I only hear the crackle of burning trees, and it is hotter than I can take. I don't want my story to end here. I roll the young man on his face and then back onto his back, trying to cover his fire leg in dirt. Something hits me. The old man throws another rock, and this one hits the young man, but I see he's aiming for my face. The woman screams, "Aguas," and she grabs a large branch from the ground and steps forward and jabs at me, and another rock from the old man clips my ear. The man returns clutching his bucket, and when he sees me, he drops it, and water sloshes out, and tears fill his eyes. The bucket is so small, and the flames are almost done destroying our town. The stick and more rocks come at me through the smoke, and I feel one bounce hard off my spine. The young man's fire is out now, but he's crying in pain. I step off him and turn and run away from my people, away from their doom, and toward the lights of a larger one. The flames rise to the tops of the trees behind me, and the hills in front of me reflect the glow, and they might as well be burning too. Fire is the only future. The burn is behind me, but the smoke is everywhere. Without the sun or moon, I don't know when day stops or night starts. I can't tell how long I've been walking away. Walking, not running, because I can't see what's right in front of me anymore and can't see myself. I could be something else. I could be a deer or even a person, but not a bird. A bird could rise above the smoke. I can't sing. My lungs are full of ugly. I look down and there are no paws. Any sec I could step off a cliff. I think I've always felt this way. The smoke makes it clear. Today, tomorrow, or yesterday, I'm fully empty. My hunger joins up with my cough, and I go from walking to crawling. Voices come at me through the smoke. "Oh, he's gotten much worse," says a voice. "Since the election, he's in front of the TV 24/7, and it's just CNN from morning till night. And you know he pretends it upsets him, but I think he loves it. Loves all the jokes and the hate and the chaos. I mean, I think he secretly, repressedly loves the guy, and loves all the nonstop media coverage." "Yeah," says another voice. "He wants to fuck the president." I know these voices are a memory and not a now. Moving doesn't seem worth it, and I stop and lie down with my not body and wait for something, anything, to shift. The memory voices leave me, and the smoke stays, and I close my eyes. I picture the men in the cave, but they're on fire, and I'm running from them. Today, tomorrow, or yesterday, the wind changes direction, and I get my body back. I put one paw in front of the other. In the burnt but open air, I'm the only creature still living. I reach a clearing, and there's a checkered blanket laid out and an overturned basket. Things left by fleeing people. The basket is empty. I dig in a knocked-over can nearby, but there's only plastic and more plastic. It's on the ground, too. I'm not sure how to have a body again after losing it, and my desire goes in all directions, slow and starved and wanting to connect. Fuck. Down the hill from the clearing is a street, and near the street is a giant round tent with no sides. Underneath, I see animals. I get closer, and the animals are frozen, not from fear of me, but because they're fake. They're painted and hard and arranged in a circle. A deer and a white horse with a horn and a big cat with a fiery swirl of hair around its yawning mouth. They're all impaled, and I go and stand with them and expect my own impalement, the rod dropping from above and stabbing through me and holding me in place, giving me purpose. It's the middle of the day, and I'm in the middle of a field, and I don't feel exposed. What person would walk into a scorched world? I follow the street and enjoy the dead silence of a park abandoned by everything that flies and shouts, until a sound stops me. Faint, but frightening. An unending roar I could never forget. Another long death. I crouch by a tree and wait for the sun to set at my back to make sure I'm facing the right way, and yes, I'm facing the right way, and that means the park has an end, and there's no more escape. I can't do another crossing. I'm not about to die on an empty stomach. What good would that do? Tonight I can smell so many animals it makes me angry. All it took was a short walk downhill to catch their scent. I'm never going toward the sunrise again, or the sunset. And the mountains are uphill, so my nose takes me in the only remaining direction. And it leads me to the stench and a wall of metal poles reaching higher up than my head can look. I expect the animals I smell to be impaled here too. Alive this time, not fake, alive, and dripping blood that I can lick and lick from the metal. Instead, the poles are clean, and I can't fit between them. I go to the top of a ridge where the poles stop and leap down onto a hard path between strange trees, a kind of tree that doesn't grow on the other side of the wall. The howling starts. Now these animals can smell me back. I see a deep pool of blue water and run toward it and let my tongue out to lap. But my tongue and face stop short at a hard wall, a wall I can see through but can't move through. All I taste is the smeared fingerprints of people. There are writhing, hairy animals swimming in the water on the other side, anxious bodies that don't know I can't reach them. I turn and follow the path and hit another clear wall. Behind this one is a god shadow perched on a cracked limb, its wings spread bigger than 3 vultures combined. The god shadow flaps, and I pray for it to fly and find a dead thing and circle and show me where it's rotting. I'm so starved I'd eat the most rotting thing, the most dead thing. The bird looks up, and in its eyes I see netting stretched tight across the night sky. It's going nowhere. What is this place? Every 10 steps I take, I'm at a new net or a new clear wall, and there's a new animal somewhere behind it, and some shriek or some rustle erupts as I pass. My senses can't keep up. I leap up onto a low stone wall and smell something like me but unlike me. I look down into this new area and it doesn't have a net or clear wall. It just goes deep. There are cat eyes by a small stream below, and the eyes meet my eyes and judge my power. This big cat has stripes running up and down its body like claw marks, like it's been shredded. There's water dripping from its mouth, and it dares me to jump down and drink. I know this look. It's the look a coyote gives me when it knows there are other coyotes hiding in the brush or circling behind me. I leave the big cat's evil sight. Have fun in your trap. I'll show you a predator. Beyond a murky green pond that even I won't drink from, my nostrils catch an irresistible scent. Small and sick and afraid. 3 of my favorite flavors. I leap another wall, and this area isn't so deep, so I fall toward the smell. A fat, furry gray thing clutches a tree and extends its weird little tongue, and before its squeal hits my ears, my teeth hit its neck, and I pull it to the ground and end its life and my starvation. Every bite tastes bad. The body slowly becomes bones, and now I'm alone. A spotlight hits the ground next to me, and the blood on my paws shines, and I gag. There are people on the way. They won't understand. People don't have to kill things like I have to kill things. I jump as high as my stuffed body will allow, and I scramble to the top of the wall. A voice shouts, "Oh, Jesus, Kiki!" A woman in a hat enters a gate below and waves a man over. They stand over the bones I left, and the woman says to the bones, "Poor Kiki." "I'm sorry, Kiki. They shouldn't have named you." The man points at me, and I remember I'm visible. Running makes my head hurt, but I run. There are people shouts on all sides of me, more names. I run for the lights of ellay. Even when I leave the park comes with me. The burn smell stays on my fur and in my nose, and the trees continue and get split by the curving street and stand tall on either side, and I choose the side with the most green and hug the hedges and try to go fast. There are buildings here much bigger and stronger than the tents in town, and their doors are hard, not soft. They go up and up, almost as tall as the trees. I hear a car approaching, and I disappear into a thick hedge. 2 men step out of the car, and they make noise with long sticks that end in spinning blades, like tiny fucking helicopters, and they stand across the street and drag the blades across the hedges, sending pieces of green flying up in the air. It's so green here. How? I bury myself deeper in case the men get tired of their hedge and attack mine. But they don't. When the spinning goes away, I look out and see 2 small hikers, a man and a woman I know from the park. They step over the huge roots that pop out of the ground on their way up the hill. Don't they get that the park isn't safe now? They stop in front of me like they heard my thoughts, like they heard my warning. "You know who lives there," says the woman, and she points across the street to the building beyond the trimmed hedge. "That's Slaughter's house." The man takes a big swig from his water bottle and says, "Oh, fuck. Really? I love Slaughter. Or, I loved him. He's like a legend." "Yeah," says the woman. "But his wife is younger than you." "Gross," says the man. "Gross? Yeah," says the woman. "But fully typical." They continue to walk uphill toward danger, and there's nothing I can do to stop them. I look at the house where they pointed. The name Slaughter sounds good to me, like something I could do, like somewhere I belong. I nap until night and wake to a car coming to life and pulling out from in front of the slaughterhouse. The car lights blind me for a sec, and when I can see again, I cross the street and crawl through the trimmed hedge and into the thick green grass. Water sprays up out of small holes in the ground, and I drink until I hear another car. I run around the side of the house into an even larger grassy area in the back. When I get there, I see a girl in a cloak on her knees, lit by a blue lantern in a circle of sparkling stones, and she holds a bowl, and the bowl pushes smoke into the air. She lays the bowl on the ground in front of her and puts her head down, so the cloak covers everything except her long hair, and her long hair spills and licks the grass like a flame. It's a color I didn't think I could see until now. She keeps her head down, and I sneak by and hug the edge of the house. I can hear her whispering. Around another corner, I find a hole in the hard gray stone where there's one chunk missing, and it's just big enough for my body, so I squeeze my body inside. I have to keep my head low, but I smell mice, and I crawl in the dirt toward their scent and the sound of scuttles. A mouse and a bunch of baby mice run toward my mouth, and my mouth eats them. With my stomach full, I keep moving, and the farther under the slaughterhouse I go, the lower the dirt sinks, and the larger the space above me becomes. There's another me-sized hole in another layer of gray stone, and on the other side of this hole, I can stand up all the way. The ground slants down into a ditch, and at the edge of the ditch is a wall, and at the top of the wall is a wooden platform with a wooden railing and a door, and beyond the door is light. I take it all in. This is my first room. There's a dripping pipe on one side of the ditch, and it gives me all the water I could want. I sleep for what feels like days here in this dark, safe spot where the sun doesn't rise or set. Confused mice come back from the outside world and run through the low space and down into my ditch, and before they even see me, I trap them in my jaws. Nothing's ever been so easy. I forget the scent of the burning forest. My fur smells like earth again. My ears hear the dripping and the clicking of bugs, and then they hear shouts. A man's deep voice coming from somewhere above. This must be slaughter. I go back through the hole into the low space where my head touches the surface above me, and my ears are close to the inside of the house, and the voice becomes clear. Muffled by a floor is the right volume for people. "Everything went fine," says Slaughter. "They're just going to keep her there for a few days until they know everything's still working okay with her body." For a moment, I listen to Slaughter listen. "Yeah, sure he's fine. He's alive. He's a baby." I follow Slaughter's footsteps to the edge of the low space. Slaughter pounds on a wall and says a short name. I hear another voice, and something in this other voice sounds kind of like Slaughter, but higher and younger, like a little Slaughter. The voice says, "Dad." And the way it says dad is the way most people say no. I curl up and let the bouncing shouts become my lullaby. These are my new people. They don't know it. There's sunlight coming from the hole in the bottom of the house, so I can tell it's day. Slaughter continues his shouting. People are loud during the day and quiet at night. I roll on my back and listen to Slaughter as he steps in a circle on the floor above me, and I know without seeing that he's on a phone because he sounds like everyone in the park when they hold their phones to their heads or speak into their wires. "No, we're fine now. The house is out of the danger area, and anyway, it's all out," says Slaughter. "But did you see they figured out the whole fire started in a homeless camp?" Slaughter goes quiet, and I hear the sound of a bottle hitting metal, and then he says, "This is what happens when we let them just live up there and no one does anything about it." His voice keeps me awake. But Slaughter is a comfort. If the mice run out, I can always eat him. The light leaves the hole and a possum appears and does what possums do. I grab it and make it mine and drag it back to my ditch and dig my teeth into its middle. It tastes okay, but I'm distracted from my meal by the hard footsteps and slamming above, and I go back into the low space. Slaughter says, "All right, I'm leaving for the hospital, last chance." And then he asks, "You're not coming?" Slaughter says, "Fine, you're not coming." Slaughter says, "Don't come." A door slams, and then another door slams. A woman's voice pours through the floor. Not a real woman. No, a woman in a recording, singing beside music and thumps. She sings, "Living alone is all I've ever done well." I go back to my possum, but before I can bite, a bigger thing happens. The door above me opens. A square of light hits my ditch. A person steps onto the wooden platform with a small stick held to her mouth. Little Slaughter blows smoke, and the smoke fills the air above me and blocks her face. All I see is the flame hair from the backyard. She's not wearing a cloak anymore, just a big shirt. When the cloud clears, she's looking right at me. In my whole life, I've been seen by only a few people, and each time was a failing of my stealth and my mother's lessons. But this moment is not like those moments. My gaze meets hers, and I don't feel guilty for being seen. There's not even a whiff of fear. "I summoned you," says Little Slaughter. And in our eyes, it feels right. "Stay," says Little Slaughter. And I do. She goes back out the door, and a moment later the music stops, and I realize I'm waiting for her to return. She returns, and she has a handful of shredded goo, and she tosses the goo down to me. I leave my possum and go to the goo and sniff it, and it's meat, and I lick it, and it's tasty. "There you go, Hackett," says Little Slaughter, and then she says, "Ew." She wipes her hand on her shirt. "I'm vegan," says Little Slaughter, "or I'm trying to be." As I eat, I keep my eyes on her. I want her to know I'm grateful. "Good girl, Hackett," says Little Slaughter. "I'm so glad you're here." She kneels and watches me chew, and this unhunted food is too easy. I love it. Time goes by, and I hear Slaughter come in and shout and then go out again. And when he goes out again, Little Slaughter comes to visit me. "Good morning, Hackett," she says, and she throws me meat, her daily offering. She holds out a large water bottle and pours, and I go to the trickle and catch the liquid in my mouth, and Little Slaughter smiles and doesn't stop pouring until the bottle is empty, and as the container quenches my thirst, I get why the hikers carry them. I try to make sense of the word she keeps saying, Hackett, and after a few days of feedings, I realize she's giving me a name. Hackett. I'll take it. I can't tell her my real one. My mother gave it to me when she first saw me lick blood off my lips. It's not made of noises a person can make. Now that my water supply is endless, the sky decides to rain. I watch it pour down through the crack in the low space, and the dirt beneath me becomes mud, and little creeks form. My lack of thirst makes me hate the water, and I leave the low space, and when I get to my ditch, I watch the creeks wash down into it. My paws get wet, and then the legs above the paws get wet, and then my dangling part and the underside of my belly get wet. Each time I shake myself dry, more water rushes in. I claw the edges of the ditch, but I can barely get a grip, and each new motion feels useless. Where was this water when I needed it? When it could have helped? My paws catch a dry spot, and I lift myself out of the ditch. The weight of the water on my fur wears me out, and I find the driest corner and curl up and let the rhythm of drops put me to sleep. I wake up because I'm drowning. The water's above my head, and there are no dry spots left on the ground. I kick against the wall and roll onto my back and float and push water out of my nose and grab a hard breath, but I'm too soaked to stay on the surface, and my soak pulls me down to the bottom of the room. In the dark water, I see the hole to the low space, and it's also underwater. There's no way outside. I think of the creatures I saw swimming and try to make their movements with my front legs. The water splashes, but I don't rise. With every flail, I think of every bad move I've made to get to this moment. I see my mother lying still beneath my father, and I see the kill-sharer lying still beside the long death, and I see my own body lying still in the flood. With my last breath, I think the word, please. Let me start over. A hard object hits my back, and I claw my way onto it. A wood plank rising up like a ramp to the platform and the railing above. I walk 3 steps and leap to the platform and knock Little Slaughter backward, and she lets go of the plank. I crouch and cough out water, and Little Slaughter says, "Shh," and she grips my wet fur. "Shh, it's okay, Hecate. I'm here." She takes me down a long, thin space and into a bright room, and she lays a soft cloth on the ground and wraps me up in it and rolls me onto my back, and everything is a blur, like my head's still underwater. All I can see is Little Slaughter's big shirt. On the shirt is a yellow animal with a long neck, and I reach out and touch the animal. Little Slaughter says, "Oh, this is dumb. A friend gave it to me for my birthday." She holds my paw and moves it slowly across the writing below the long-necked animal. And she says, "It says," and then she speaks to me slow, in the voice people use when they're reading out loud. "Not all giraffes are real." "The rain is stopping," says Little Slaughter. I'm very dry now, and I try to stand, and I succeed. Little Slaughter says, "Sorry you had to be down in the cellar. I don't even know what it is. It's just 'cause the house is built into the hill, but you're here now. This is our space." My eyes are back to normal, and I look around the room at the soft ground and the splashes of color on the walls and the green outside the big slabs of glass. Little Slaughter says, "Dad never comes in here." There's another big cat across the room. "Oh," says Little Slaughter, and she walks over to the cat, and I follow her, and the cat gets closer. We reach a hard wall, and I see there are 2 of her, and I push my face against the hard, flat cat. "It's just your reflection," says Little Slaughter. There is so much more of me here than the nose and mouth I see in the black screens of dropped phones. I can't touch myself. Little Slaughter brings in a box of weird sand and puts it in the corner and says, "You can go to the bathroom here." I don't know what she means, but I take a chance and piss and shit in the sand and bury it, and that's what she wants, and she takes the box out of the room and brings it back fresh. "This used to be for my cat," says Little Slaughter, "but he died 2 years ago, and Dad won't let me get another because Beth is allergic to, every animal." Little Slaughter shows me her sofa and tells me it's my sofa now, and I hop onto it, and it's exactly my size. She talks, and I listen. I learn about longing. I get most of my new words from her. She makes a circle of sparkling stones around my sofa and kneels and feeds me from her outstretched palm and calls me her goddess. If you feel alone in the world, find someone to worship you. Little Slaughter sleeps at night, and I sleep in the day, so we watch over each other. She spends most of her awake time on her phone, laughing to herself and pushing the surface with her fingers. She holds the screen to my face and says, "Look, Hecate, I found a picture of you. You're famous." I look, and it's just a bright blur. The phone shudders in her hand. Says Little Slaughter. "This guy keeps texting me. He thinks just 'cause we've run into each other 3 times since graduation we're meant to be or whatever. But I don't believe in coincidences. He can bite my ass." She throws the phone, and I go to get it for her, and she laughs and says, "Leave it." I look again at the picture. That can't be me. It doesn't have a smell. I don't trust screens to tell me who I am. I'm sorry, Hecate, says Little Slaughter as she feeds me an apple because I've eaten enough apples. Dad hasn't gone shopping because he's always at the hospital. I'm running out of meat for you. Even here, we're in scarcity. They're bringing the baby home tomorrow, says Little Slaughter, and the way she says baby makes me wonder if she wants to offer the baby to me for my next meal. She says, whatever, I'll be gone soon and Dad'll be happy and Beth will be thrilled. They can just be happy here with their baby. I roll sideways on the sofa, and she sits with me and rubs my head like park people rub the heads of their dogs. Am I a pet? She says, next month I'm going to Santa Fe to do my photography. There are a lot of witches in the desert, and I can't wait to get as far away as possible. And then I'm going to go work at the border and take pictures of what's really happening, but I need to get better with my Spanish. She tells me words in Spanish. De nada, gato, agua. In my head, it's all people language. Little Slaughter says, you can come with me, you can eat ice. When she's asleep, I see a small set of eyes in the darkness outside. A cat. I can't smell it, but I can see blood on its little mouth from a fresh kill. The cat looks through the glass, and it looks through me. Like, why aren't I out hunting? Why am I inside? Why isn't this person my prey? My mouth falls open, and I can hear the blood inside Little Slaughter. She wakes up and stands up, and the cat eyes disappear. She asks if I'm comfy. That small word. Yes. And no. I lick my paws, and Little Slaughter reads to me off her phone. Facts about big cats. She says, because of people, you're becoming more and more isolated from one another. She says, sorry. She reads, chronic stress can result in low reproductive rates when in captivity. She strokes my back and tells me about my characteristic neck bite. I feel more like a person than ever because I'm starting to hate myself. I look around at all the space I have, and I think of all the other space in this house and in every house on this street and in all of ellay, and I think how the people of my town could be here too, instead of burning in the woods. This is my second room. It's so much nicer than my first. I don't belong here either. The baby comes home and cries most of the day and night through our wall. The shouts of slaughter come home too, and also the small voice of a woman, and when the woman's small voice happens, the shouts of slaughter get softer, but only for a short time. We treasure the pauses. In a long pause, Little Slaughter sneaks chicken into me, and I gnaw on a leg, and she spends the night telling me about a place called Disney. She tells me she wants to take me. You'd love Disney, says Little Slaughter. There are animals everywhere, and all we have to do is jump in a car and get on the freeway and gun it to 70, and we're there. I close my eyes, and pictures appear. I used to want to work at Disney, says Little Slaughter. If I worked there, I'd be the evil queen, but when she's an old witch, and I'd go around and scare kids and shit. I fall asleep and have my first dream since before the fire. When I wake up, my body is moving faster than it's ever moved, gunning it to 70. My eyes open and the blurry distance stands still, but the world right outside the car shoots by at unbelievable speed. My paws are up on the dashboard and I'm sitting in the passenger seat. I turn my head and Little Slaughter smiles and rubs my back as she drives. I'm so much bigger than her and my body takes up the whole right front of the car. Get excited, Hecate, she says. We're on our way to Disney. She lets go of me and grips the wheel. This is the long death from the inside. I look out and think I see the body of the kill sharer. But no, it's a bag. Other cars pass and people turn their heads and smile and children press their little hands and faces to the glass and scream silently. It's your birthday, Little Slaughter says. You're turning 5. And that's like 35 in cat years. This is your prime. It's weirdly quiet in the car, like we're in a bubble, protected from the speeding world outside. The world outside slows down, and our car goes up in the air and leaves the long death below. Here we are, says Little Slaughter. We stop next to a bunch of other cars, and she jumps out and runs around and pops open my door, and my big body falls out, and I'm on all 4 feet again, watching kids and adults and more people than I've ever seen swarm out of their cars and make a river of feet moving toward the sunlight. Little Slaughter claps, and I look up, and she's wearing a sparkling blue jumpsuit and ears like a mouse. Did she change, or... We join the river of feet, and we go down moving stairs and a polished sidewalk, me running beside her. I smell something so different that it's hard to describe, and as we come to a stop, and as the river of people forms a long, slow-moving line, I realize it's not what I smell, it's what I don't smell. No one is afraid. We reach a turnstile, and I start to walk under it, but a woman says, "Wait." Little Slaughter smiles at the woman, and the woman smiles back. "Is this a service animal?" asks the woman. "Yes. She's my emotional support cat," says Little Slaughter. "And I have her papers right here." She reaches in the pocket of her jumpsuit, but the woman says, "No, you're fine." The woman lifts my paw and presses a small wooden object gently against it. "This is your hand stamp for re-entry in case you leave the park," says the woman. "Oh, we won't," says Little Slaughter, "but thanks." And she moves my paw and gets her own hand stamped. "Now, a quick picture," says the woman, and Little Slaughter turns her face, and I hear an electric click from the device. "Now her turn," says the woman, and Little Slaughter grasps my neck and tilts my face up and says, "Smile for the picture, Hecket." And I do. I smile. The only time a cat has done that. Music and voices are everywhere inside the gates. There are other animals, big animals with soft fur and faces, and they stand upright and hug and blend in with the people, all the people with their own ears and hats and bright objects, and no one thinks I'm strange at all. And some of the kids come over and pet me, and Little Slaughter lets them, and they say, "She's beautiful." And Little Slaughter says, "It's her birthday." And the kids tie a birthday ribbon around my neck, and we walk down the wide main street together. There's a bench beneath a castle, and Little Slaughter sits me down there and says, "Stay." I stay, and enjoy my stillness within all the motion around me. As soon as I get hungry, food appears. A huge bird leg that Little Slaughter holds out to me, and she has her own, and she sits down on the bench, and she tears into the fat flesh. I look around, and others are eating these big, ugly meats too, so I slobber and chew and join in. Gory, gory feasting. So far from Scare City. "You must be this tall to ride," says Little Slaughter in the reading voice. She stands by a sideways stick in the air and holds her hand out to measure its height. "Stand up, Hecket," she says. And I stand up, like the other big animals in Disney, and now my neck is above the sideways stick. I'm a good emotional support cat, and I'll be tall for her. "Perfect," says Little Slaughter, and we run to the front of the line, and they strap us into a log, and water sloshes over the sides, and she clutches my back, and the ride begins. There's darkness and color, and animals singing, and animals being tortured, and each time we go over a cliff, my stomach slams up into my throat, and I feel amazing. When we get off the ride, we're soaked, so I shake myself dry, and everyone around us screams and enjoys the water raining off me. "Look, Hecket, there we are," says Little Slaughter, and she points to a screen, and I see the screen clearly, and on it we're going down the big cliff, and Little Slaughter has her hands up, and her hands block the faces of the people in the ride behind us, and I look so scared of my own happiness. "I love the photos," says Little Slaughter. "Now, even if we leave, we'll still be here." We wait in a line surrounded by glowing wooden statues. It reminds me of the forest when I was a kitten, when I loved the sunlight, and there was more green than there ever would be again. "This is worth it," says Little Slaughter. "It's my favorite thing in the world." The glowing wooden statues shake and make noise. "That one's the goddess of fire," says Little Slaughter as we step forward. "And this one causes earthquakes." She touches a branch and it sings. These trees are alive and fake. The line moves again and Little Slaughter gets her favorite thing in the world. It's yellow and cold, and she holds one for both of us and licks hers and says, and holds mine out for me, but she holds it up high and says, "Okay, Hackett, if you want this, you have to stand up again and stay standing." And I do what she says again, and like magic, I'm fully upright, licking too. I'm taller than Little Slaughter now. We walk through more forests, fake and real, and out into a fantasy. And the day fades to night, and the lights come on at the castle, and more transformation happens. I look at her, and she looks at me, and she's no longer in a jumpsuit and mouse ears. No, she's changed again when I wasn't looking, and she's wearing a dark dress and a jeweled crown. I'm on 2 legs, and it feels permanent, a person in a catsuit. My paws drop to my sides, and they're ready to grasp. Little Slaughter says, "I'm the queen now, the evil queen, and you're my emotional support goddess." We pass a line of people shuffling like there's something great at the end, and as we get to the end, I see a throne and a sofa at the top of some stairs, and I know the throne is for Little Slaughter, and the sofa is for me. Up there is where we belong. At the top of the stairs, we take our places. Little Slaughter seated and clutching the arms of the throne like she was born there, and me sprawled out the whole length of the sofa, scratching its fabric and licking my paws to a regal polish. The people at the front of the line come to us and pose. A photographer flashes picture after picture, and everyone who comes up and stands with us smiles, because they know that the photos mean even after they leave, they'll still be here. The line moves but stays just as large, and it stretches into the distance, and for once I can see the distance instead of the usual blur, and I can see all the way over the Disney buildings and across the faraway lights of LA, and I can see the dark mountains below the Hollywood sign where I think I must be asleep and dreaming this. Because how? More flashes come from the camera and more smiles come from the people assembled around us. The birthday ribbon around my neck swells, and I want to speak. So I do. At the sound of my voice, the stairs shift and start to move forward. The throne and sofa are now the top of a parade float. Costumed animals appear and begin the parade, and our float follows. Our people below part to both sides of the wide street, and they cheer and take their own pictures and wave their huge bird legs and twirl their shining sticks, pinks and reds like sparks of blood and thought. Our people shower us with cheers as we reach the end of the main street, and I see the exit and think, no, don't let it be over. The float slowly turns around so we can face back the way we came. "Look up," says Little Slaughter. "Look all the way up." I tilt my spinning head back. "Fireworks." The fireworks explode in the shape of Little Slaughter's face and explode in the shape of my face, and in the night sky we're smiling, exactly like we smiled in the photos they took at the turnstiles. I look at Little Slaughter's real face lit up by her firework face, and she rubs my head. A storm of eyes is on us from our people below. I lift my goddess paw and wave at them, and they all wave back. "We're here, Hecate. We made it," says Little Slaughter. "We're in the happiest place on earth." Our sky faces fall apart and rain down and leave smoke. The scream that fills my ears lets me know that I'm waking up for real. Disney is gone, and I'm back in Little Slaughter's room. A woman stands in the doorway, and she's making the scream. She gasps, and then she is quieter than I thought a person could be. She holds a big sucking machine on the floor, and it makes a big sucking sound. Until she slides it at me fast and hard, and it knocks the table next to my sofa and stops making a sucking sound, and the lamp falls off onto the carpet and breaks into pieces. I look at the woman, and she is frozen, like she's expecting me to move first. To indulge her, I lick a paw, clean and peaceful. She runs away, and I hear more of her screams, and I feel powerful and also guilty as fuck. I look at the lamp in pieces on the floor. I can't fix this. I have no idea what it's like to be a person and to be confronted with a me. The carpet is ruined already by the shards of lamp, so I get down off my sofa and scratch at it and try to claw words into the floor to explain myself. But when I climb back onto the sofa and look down at my work, it's jagged strips with no order or meaning. Someday I'll be able to write what you're reading, maybe in Santa Fe with Little Slaughter, telling every word to her, or on the other side of the world from the burning hills. In New York with a therapist. Maybe I'll write it from an okay future, a future where I'm safe. Or maybe it won't ever get written, only growled. Little Slaughter enters the room, and the room feels right again with her in it. But she is acting wrong. Shit, she says. I'm so sorry, Hecate, I forgot that Marie comes Mondays. Fuck! She sits on the sofa, and I jump up and lay out and put my head in her lap, and she pets me for a sec before standing and leaving me for her drawers. Okay, we're just gonna have to go to Santa Fe early, she says. I can see the decision in her eyes and in the way she grabs a bag and unzips it and tears open every drawer and stuffs clothes and shoes into the bag. What do you need, Hecate? You need food. Lots of food. Okay, Little Slaughter says, and each word gets faster as it comes out. She comes back over to me and puts her forehead to my forehead. You didn't do anything bad, she says. You're perfect. I just fucked up. There's the sound of a car outside, and Little Slaughter freezes, like Marie froze when she saw me. Her tiny fear voice says, Dad's home. This is Slaughter the man, not just Slaughter the voice. But his voice came in with him, and it fills the room. Jane, get back, he says to Little Slaughter, and grabs her and pulls her toward the door, and she throws him off and comes back to me, and he yells, God damn it, do what I say! Slaughter is smaller than I expected, and he has only a little bit of hair on his head, and the little bit of hair he has is white. He's holding a long, smooth stick in one fist, and he points it at me. Get away from it, he yells. Jane, come over here. Little Slaughter puts her hands on her hips and doesn't move. He slams the door and locks it behind him and says, Beth is calling the cops. Jane, this is serious. You need to come over here with me. The air in the room is hot with Slaughter here. It's a cougar, Jane, he says. It's a goddamn cougar. Is that what I am? The door jiggles and bangs. Slaughter flattens his body against it, and he checks that it's locked. A woman's voice comes from behind the door, shouting, What's going on, Jack? I just saw Marie take off. Did you call the cops? Slaughter yells at the door, and the door yells, Call them and tell them what? Just go be with the baby, yells Slaughter. And then he turns to Little Slaughter and says, Jesus, Jane, the baby's here. Little Slaughter stays still, and I stay still with her, and we could be a picture, we're so not moving. Slaughter looks around the room and sees the broken lamp and the mess of drawers, and he says the first quiet thing I've heard him say. He says, Why is your suitcase out? You want to have a baby, Dad? Fine, yells Little Slaughter. You want to date a baby? Fine, but I get a fucking baby too. I'm not the problem now, yells Slaughter. You are the problem now. This is the problem. He points the stick at me, and I notice his throat. Look, shouts Little Slaughter. She's mine! She's okay! Slaughter holds the stick with both hands and steps forward. Little Slaughter holds her hands out flat in front of her, like it will add to her power. She's not gonna bite me, says Little Slaughter. She puts her head by my mouth, and I don't bite her. She's not gonna claw me. She lifts my paw up to her side, and I don't claw her, and she lets go, and I drop my paw and dangle it off the sofa in the least scary way I can. She won't even move. I don't even move. Slaughter's hands turn purple. He's gripping the stick hard. I try to purr, and it comes out wrong. I'm so good, but things don't get better. How long have you had this in the house, Jane? Forever, Dad, for fucking ever. Jane, get over here. What? Jane, this isn't okay. Dad, put the bat away. You don't need it. She's good. You keep saying she. What the hell, Jane? Yeah, Dad, this is Hecate. She's mine and I'm hers. I can see its goddamn dick. Fuck you! Jane. Fuck that, and fuck you, Dad. Little Slaughter rushes forward and unlocks the door, and Slaughter runs to stop her and lets the stick fall to his side, and Little Slaughter is gone, and another person replaces her in the doorway and says, Jack, what the fuck is going on with your daughter? Beth, wait, says Slaughter. The new woman sees me, and of course the new woman freezes. Everyone freezes or runs. Those are the two things everyone does, except for Little Slaughter, and I want her in here, but she's not here. Where did she go? Jack. It's the mountain lion, says the new woman. What? Says Slaughter. It's the mountain lion. You haven't read about it? It lives in the park. Is this fame? Well, now it's fucking here, says Slaughter. And the woman says, Jack, we have a baby. And then the woman does the other thing that everyone does. She runs. Slaughter raises the stick again, but he steps backward instead of forward and reaches out a hand to grip the doorknob and starts to slowly close the door. A scream happens. Jack! Shouts the woman from down the hall. Jack, where's the baby? The baby's gone! Slaughter runs after her down the hall and takes his shouting with him. I have a moment to think. After searching my head, I don't have any thoughts, and I use my eyes and I look over at the reflection on the closet doors. In the room inside the glass, I see an unplugged sucking machine on its side. I see a shattered lamp on the floor. I see rips in the carpet from claws. I see an open suitcase and drawers pulled out. I see the green blur of trees behind the sofa. I see a circle of stones and cards and candles. I see myself. I see myself. It's time to leave. Little Slaughter runs back in with a full backpack and slams the door and locks it. She runs to me and holds me tight. Don't worry, Hecate, she says. The baby's fine. I just moved his little bed thing into the laundry room, so we've got like 15 minutes till they find him. But he's good. He's got his little binky and everything. I don't worry about the baby. Little Slaughter stuffs one more pile of clothes into her suitcase and throws the backpack over her shoulder. She jingles keys at me like it's a game. It's not a game. Here we go, she says. And she runs to the glass wall behind the sofa and pushes it to the side and pats her leg, and I go over to her. She gestures for me to move forward, and I do. There's nothing between me and the outside. I'm stretched across the back seat, and Little Slaughter is driving. I have some room back here. Stay down, says Little Slaughter. Stay down for now, okay? I feel the car speeding and turning and turning. Then we stop, and I almost roll off the seat, and I claw my way back up to sitting. Shit, says Little Slaughter, and the car moves very slowly, stopping and starting, and it's not at all like the speed of my Disney dream. The car is a quiet bubble, though, and I enjoy the quiet after the screaming and running and breaking in the slaughterhouse. Traffic. It's traffic, Hecate, she says. It's going to take us a while to get out of this and hit the freeway. Little Slaughter drums her fingers on the steering wheel, and the car edges forward. I can see her reflection, and her eyes are angry and afraid, but smiling at me. She says, "Now we're stuck here getting cancer like everybody else." When we come to a full stop again, Little Slaughter takes her hands off the wheel and grabs a bag and rips it open and turns around in her seat and pours chunks of dried meat out in front of me. I eat them. "Good girl," says Little Slaughter. It's nice to be fed and praised at the same time. "I wish you could talk back to me," says Little Slaughter. And she faces forward, and the car moves again, and she keeps talking. Fucking rush hour, of course. "Clear, keep," it says on the street. "Clear and then keep in that order when you're going slow." That's how I always read it. I nod, but I don't know what she's talking about. And she meets my eyes again in the reflection, and she watches me swallow, and reaches back and touches my leg. "Say something," she says. "Please, Hecate, I'm not talking to myself for this entire drive, so just say something." I want to. I open my mouth. "Okay, fuck this," says Little Slaughter. "We're going through the neighborhood." She turns the wheel, and we speed right, and for a moment we're going faster, but then we stop again, and Little Slaughter bangs a hand on the steering wheel and sinks her head against it. She turns and caresses my back, and I can feel her frustration in every pet. "Really, stay down now, Hecate. There's people everywhere here. I'm sorry, but you have to stay down and don't look out." I love her, and I'm thankful for the time we've spent together, whether she summoned me or I found her. I'm excited for her image of our future, a life far away. I let her pet me harder than I want to be petted, and I listen close when she says, "Stay down, stay down." But when she lets go and looks away, I do the opposite. From inside the car, I see all the people. Some walk and some sit, and they all hold phones and tap on them. And at the tables that take up most of the sidewalk across the street, the people drink and eat and talk and don't talk. There is a lot going on, but all I see is one person alone at a table in the middle of all the tables. And it's a person I know. It's a neck I know. The man with the whip. I watch his neck, that familiar neck, but I also watch his hands. They move up and down as he eats, and I think of how easily those hands can make fire, and how easily that fire can destroy tents and a town and burn a forest. Every person sitting and walking has hands too, and I see all their hands, and I know what their hands can do, and what their hands would do, and the violence waiting behind every motion. I learn something new. I learn I can open a car door. On quiet midnights back in the caves, I could almost imagine that all the people were gone. Canyons cleared of their footsteps and voices and cars. The long deaths standing still. Trees expanding and their greens swallowing the buildings and returning the original smells. Returning what's needed. I could see myself leaving the park and walking through an empty ellay. Slow and safe with all the other animals. Back to the deep forest and the forever water and the sun setting. People can't see it, but I can. Their end makes everything okay. Scare City isn't Scare City with no one around to say its name. I open the car door and jump out onto the street, and it's only a street, only a short death, and I cross it quickly with the cars all stopped. When I reach the man with the whip, there are fewer people because they've dropped their bags and kicked their chairs and run away. But the man with the whip doesn't see me until I'm in leaping distance. And so I leap, and my claws connect with his chest, and I knock him back, and he falls out of his chair, and his face hits the sidewalk, and his nose sprays blood. He rolls over and looks up, and I'm pinning him down. Where's your whip now, I think? Where's your fire? His neck vein bulges, like a wish come true. I can smell his blood on the pavement. And I'm not at all hungry. This is not about need. No, this is want. It's a terrible choice, but I'm making it, just like a person. My teeth tear into his neck, tear right through the vein, and my jaws clamp and twist and do what they're meant to do, and his body cracks under my weight, and he stops moving. His blood fills my stomach. Warm rain. I look up and my head clears and I remember little Slaughter. She's the only person outside, and she's standing in the middle of the street by her open car doors. Her eyes are on my eyes, and my eyes shoot fireworks. She sees the dead man, and she sees that I made him that way, and her fists clench, and she shudders like an earthquake. We meet for the first time. Hello, little Slaughter. This is what a goddess looks like. She steps back and slams the door that I opened, and she gives me one last glance. I would only slow you down, little Slaughter. You've got so many miles to go. She gets in the front seat and shuts the door. Good girl. I look down at the man with the whip, who is now the man with no whip and no life. I look down at his open throat. His hands aren't hands anymore. They're just useless hunks of white. Little Slaughter starts the car. I'm letting her go. There's blood all over my body. My mother would be so proud. Little Slaughter's car finds an opening and she speeds away. A big car sound replaces her little car sound in the air. Many cars and their mechanical howls coming closer, and then I hear the sky sound I remember from the mountain, a fucking helicopter. Not a rescue chopper to carry me somewhere safe, but the kind that circles close and blinds with its light. I hear the whirring, and it gets louder than the cars, and I know the sound is coming for me, and the people inside the sound are coming for me. There's nowhere to go. I'm done with thickets and caves and rooms, and I'm sick of being outside. I step away from my prey. His thick, empty body is too heavy to hide. I'm only sorry I didn't get to eat all of you. The howling cars form a mess in the street. Lights swirl everywhere. Padded people leave the cars and surround me and point long objects. These aren't sticks. They shout so loud at one another that I can't tell what they're saying. I can't listen anymore. The fucking helicopter's whirring is right above us, and the padded people look up and then look back at me, and what I see in their eyes is what they see in mine. A threat. I retract my claws and try to become the kitten at the center of myself. Maybe the padded people know why I did what I did. Maybe they understand. I say something. It sounds like words. It's not what they want to hear.